You're not going to understand beer with numbers or PowerPoints. Beer is good because it makes you feel better and do awesome things you wouldn't normally do.
It's beer 30, and I'm thirsty. It's beer
and it's
30.
If you work for the Beer Institute, is that really working? I mean, I don't know. I have to wonder. The Beer Institute is based in Washington, D.C. They represent the $331 billion beer industry, an industry that includes 6,600 brewers and more than 2 million American jobs. Alex Davidson is the Director of Public Affairs at the Beer Institute, and he joins us now. Alex, thanks very much. Tell us about, well, we got National Beer Day is Friday? How did that come about?
Well, thanks for having me on again, guys. I know it's always a lot of fun to talk about beer, and what better opportunity than National Beer Day, which is this Friday. So it's April 7th, and it commemorates 90 years ago in 1933, the enactment of the Collin-Harrison Act. So as you guys know, Prohibition was a 13-year, failed experiment in social engineering, and it wasn't popular. And when FDR ran for office, he talked about repealing Prohibition, and one of the first things that happened was they signed the Collin-Harrison Act, which allowed for the sale of low-alcohol beer. So we signed it late March. Early April, it went into effect, months before full Prohibition repeal. December was when the full repeal happened, when Utah formalized and ratified the 21st Amendment. But it was the first day that low-alcohol beer was allowed to be sold in America again. Huge day. You look at some of the headlines from back then, beer is back. People were flooding the streets to drink beer. Budweiser, they had the famous Clydesdales made their debut. There were beer deliveries to the White House. It's just a really exciting moment in American history, but especially for the beer industry.
Yeah, Al, can you tell us more about the low alcohol aspect of this? I can remember as a youngster that there were, it was a bit of an issue in some states that you couldn't get the higher content in some places. So
it's really been done on a state-by-state basis ever since Prohibition, but when they initially repealed the Prohibition on low-alcohol beer, this was beer that was less than 3.2% alcohol content. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind it was that it was thought to be too low to be intoxicating. So it was something that you could enjoy, but you're not going to have some of the ill effects that you would have if you were drinking hard liquor, for example. And it kind of goes into the way that Prohibition happened is, a lot of the people that were proponents of Prohibition only thought it would apply to liquor, and then, more things got caught up in the Volstead Act, and there was a little more damage done than people anticipated. So when they were undoing it, they gave low-alcohol beer the first route to market of all alcohol because they recognized those differences.
Alex Davidson's our guest. He's the Director of Public Affairs at the Beer Institute in Washington, D.C. So what's going on with beer sales nationally? Because we've been hearing, and we cover this on this business program here, that beer sales are actually gone down a little bit. And, the seltzer drinks and the Jack Daniels and Cokes, they're taking up a marketplace. What's the situation with beer sales?
The beer remains historically relatively flat. I know that last time I was on, we were talking about the seltzers and how they make up a component of the beer marketplace. But beer's relatively stable. People's preferences may change between different types. But at the end of the day, we see that, wine has seen a bigger dip, but beer has remained pretty flat. One of the things that you talked about was the Jack and Coke and these canned cocktail products that fall outside of the beer space. And that's something that we've seen a lot of growth in, but we also see a lot of, potential harm to consumers. They're being marketed as beer, which really doesn't make sense. Space. And that's something that we've seen a lot of growth in, but we also see a lot of, potential harm to consumers. They're being marketed as beer, which really doesn't make sense. The liquor industry is trying to push off that, it has the same effect, it's the same sort of thing, but at the end of the day, it's a different product. You also have to think about what is the end goal. Are people trying to recruit consumers into higher alcohol products? Which is something that we always push moderation. So not our agenda at the Beer Institute. But
so, Alec,
yeah. I'm sorry.
No, go. I'm curious. What is the beer industry doing in general about these headwinds? We talk about spiked seltzer. We talked about the spirits, the canned cocktails. Mm-hmm. Now there's cannabis. Now it's out. It's being its legalization is spreading. Is this something that worries these beer makers enough that they say, okay, we have to diversify. We have to look for other revenue streams?
I think that, core beer is really what is the heart of their business. Obviously, these are large companies that have a lot of market research and they analyze everything. But at the end of the day, beer is what pays the bills. That being said, if consumers are demanding new products, the industry is always, going to be responsive to that. But a lot of these issues, they haven't really been settled yet. Some of these things, they pop up, they fizzle out. We saw that with the hard sodas a few years ago and Alco Pops. And, we always have these different iterations of products. But, beer is larger than it's ever been before. More brewers in America, more jobs, more economic impact. I know when I was coming on, you were talking about more than 2 million jobs in the United States. Massachusetts, that's more than 48,000 alone. So those are people from, supplier to distribution to retail, generating more than $7.5 billion worth of economic impact. So, things change, but
right.
At the end of the day, they often stay.
At the end of the day, we like our beer. Yeah, he's Alex Davidson.
We like our beer.
Yeah, he's Alex Davidson. He's the Director of Public Affairs for the Beer Institute there in Washington, D.C.